Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Hour being 7:03 p.m. on Monday, February 13th. I'd like to call to order the City of Laconia City Council meeting. Prior to going any further, we should do the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd ask Councilor Haynes if he'd lead us in that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Haynes. We're joined at council table this evening by City Clerk Katie Gargano. If you please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney.
Here.
Counselor Susie.
Here.
Counselor Littman.
Present.
Counselor Haynes.
Here.
Counselor Felch.
Here.
Mayor Hosmer.
Present. We're also joined right now by Kirk Biotti, our city manager, and Glenn Smith, finance director, will be back in just a moment, but he'll be with us this evening. Working through the agenda this evening, agenda item number 7, which is 7A, which is the regular city council meeting minutes of January 23rd, 2023. Minutes of the regular city council meeting of January 23rd, 2023 were distributed to the city council on January 27th, 2023. With no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. Agenda item 8 is our consent and action items. 8A is a temporary traffic order, 2023-01 for Wake the Lake. A request has been received by the city to hold Wake the Lake on Lakeside Avenue on May 19th to the 21st, 2023, from the hours of 5 p.m. Friday, May 19th, to 5 p.m. Sunday, May 21st, 2023. Actual hours of operation for the event will be from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. Friday, May 19th, 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. on Saturday, May 20th, and 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday, May 25th. Section 161-4 of the City Code states that, in part, that outdoor sound shall not operate past the hour of 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 10 p.m. on Friday and Saturday, with the exception of Motorcycle Week. The organizer of the event is requesting the time set forth as shown above be extended to allow bands to play until 11 p.m. on Friday, May 19th and Saturday, May 20th. The Special Events Review Committee approved this request at their February 1st, 2023 meeting. Map of the event is attached to your packet this evening. And please note that paid parking on Lakeside Avenue will not yet be in effect during this event. So right now, this report was submitted by Kirk Biotti, our city manager. So right now, I'll be looking for a motion to move to approve temporary traffic order 2023-01, Wake the Lake, approve a waiver of all licensing and special event fees, extend the hours of operation of the sound equipment and or loudspeakers for Wake the Lake from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday, May 19th, and Saturday, May 20th, 23, and allow alcohol consumption on city property in the designated areas only. Motion made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Susie. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you. Item number 8B, which is temporary traffic order 2023-02, a Laconia Bike Timber Fest. A request has been made to hold the 6th annual Laconia Bike Timber Fest on September 15th to September 17th, 2023, from the hours of 5 p.m. on Friday, September 15th to 5 p.m. Sunday, September 17th. Once again, actual hours of operation of the event will be from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. Friday, September 15th, from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. on Saturday, September 16th, and 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday, September 17th. Similarly, Section 161-4 of the City Code states that, in part, that outdoor sound shall not operate past the hour of 9 p.m. Sunday to Thursday and 10 p.m. on Friday and Saturday, with the exception of Motorcycle Week. The organizer of the event is requesting that the time for outdoor sound, as shown above, be extended to allow bands to play until 11 p.m. on Friday, September 15th, and Saturday, September 16th. The Special Events Review Committee approve this request at their February 1st, 2023 meeting. Once again, a map of the event is provided as additional information. The organizer of the event is also asking a waiver of all licensing and special event fees associated with the event. Just a question on that. Do we do that traditionally in Bike Timberfest, or do we offer reduced fees?
We've, last year we waived the fees.
We waive the fees?
Yes.
So right now, we're looking for a motion to approve temporary traffic order 2023-02 Laconia Bike Timberfest, approve a waiver of all licensing and special event fees associated with the event, extend the hours of operation of sound equipment and/or loudspeakers for Bike Timberfest from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday, September 15th, 2023, and Saturday, September 16th, 2023, and allow alcohol consumption on city property in the designated areas only. So made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. All those opposed? Are you, which way are you going?
In favor, I'm
In favor,
sorry.
that's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item number 9. It is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak to a matter that not on tonight's agenda, now would be the appropriate time. Welcome, Representative.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councilman. My name is Stephen Bogert. I reside in Ward 5 on Spruce Street in the South End. And I come to you tonight to speak of a problem that has been plaguing the Spruce Street, the woods within the Spruce Street area in our area, where we have a large number of dislocated people who seem to reside in the woods. They've been residing in the woods for a long period of time. They have tents set up. I've seen stoves in the area, in one of the tents at least, and stuff. And I think it would be appropriate that if we found another, or moved them out, whichever the case may be, out of the woods. There are several laws that are being violated. There are several safety hazards that are being created. And above all, the people that live within that neighborhood cannot enjoy the freedom of their property and the use, as we have a parade every morning and a parade every night of these people coming and going. Okay? I've had to chase one personally off of my next door neighbor's porch from stealing packages. I have had one come into my driveway 2 weeks ago asking for money. And I think at this point in time, it bears notice that it doesn't create a safe environment for our children to be able to play in their front yards, as we've seen in the news itself, where this young child was coming home from the bus stop and was followed all the way into the driveway of her house. It's not me saying it, this was on news. And so this is not where if something's going to happen. It's just a matter of when something happens. And we all know about it, and then we can all take the responsibility of whatever happens, okay, because we know of it. It's not like we can say we don't know of it. I've seen the council at the last meeting respond to a parking issue very expediently. They set forth because someone was in violation of the zoning code and had short-term living, and it was all brought before the council to address this issue over parking. And in a very expedient and efficient manner, the council did. And so with that in mind, as we have the same types of laws and stuff that are in violation, I hope and pray, as everybody else within our neighborhood hopes and prays, that just as expediently, there is some action taken on this matter. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments, Representative. Anyone else wishing to speak to matters not on tonight's agenda? Moving along, we'll move on to item number 13, 13A, which is public hearing, a request to approve angled parking on Winnisquam Avenue. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the January 25th, 2023 edition of Laconia Daily Sun and posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of SAU. Action on this item may be taken up under unfinished business this evening. So I'd like to open the public hearing on this matter at 7:14 p.m. If someone would like to speak to that, please step right up and introduce yourself and go right ahead.
Can everyone see this okay?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, my name is Jessica Jacobson.
Pull that
I-
microphone right close so you can hear you pretty well.
Yep.
But
Okay, my name is Jessica Jacobson. I am a project engineer at Wilcox and Barton. We are representing Naughty Marina for the applicant Naughty Marina Inc. And we are in front of you today to license 7 parking spaces that partially encroach upon the right-of-way, where the existing marina historically has head-in parking along essentially the entire frontage of this, and the head-in parking does encroach along the right-of-way, so we are proposing to decrease the amount of spaces that do so, and it will total 7 spaces that slightly encroach, and they are in the location where it will encroach to the to be minimized as much as possible, understanding that historically it's used all along the frontage. So to detail in, these 7 spaces are right here. These are the 7 spaces that we're discussing. In existing today, they continue to pull in all the way down, and then all the way over here, they have full parking spaces that also would encroach into the right-of-way. So we are proposing 7 right here to accommodate for the users of the marina, but also to minimize where the encroachment is as much as possible. This is in the performance zoning overlay. We are not proposing to change the number of boat slips. We are maintaining the number of boat slips, and that pretty much sums it up for the parking spaces, but I'm open to any questions about the permitting or any questions about the marina in general.
Counselor Cheney.
The average pickup truck would stick how far out into the,
So the spaces that we have shown are the regulated spaces that are 20 feet long. So with that being said, this would be for a regular parking space, and the maximum encroachment onto the far side, which this one encroaches the most, this one only encroaches less than a foot for 2 or 3 spaces. That one to the far left, where the right-of-way line goes in the most, is approximately 5 feet that it encroaches into it.
and what's the width of the road there?
Well, this is the width of the right-of-way. So
Okay.
this is the over into the right-of-way, understanding that the right-of-way has a shoulder on each side.
Counselor Susie.
If I may, Wes, I know you don't have to get up, please, okay? Have you looked at any of this in reference to maintenance of the roads and when it comes to that?
What it basically, the rules as it applies from the state is anything other than parallel parking on a public right-of-way has to be approved by the legislative body of the municipality, which is you.
Right,
In this particular case, because it's nose-in parking and it's coming out partially into the right-of-way, what you're actually approving is an angled parking of some sort. As long as it clears the travel way, they would have to move out if we ever are doing maintenance or anything, just like any other parking spot.
okay, because I guess one thing that concerns me, you might say, and I guess that doesn't concern the time of the year, is plowing, okay?
Right, but for the most part, this is associated with
This-
docks, which won't be in use during that.
That's what
time.
I'm saying, time of year. The other thing is, I look at the angle parking we have here on Beacon Street East.
Right.
And some of the pickup trucks, and I think this is what you were referring to, Council Cheney, is that it blocks the walking through there. And when it doesn't block the walking, if the pickup truck would pull out so it will not block the walking, we'd have a very serious travel lane reduction. That's what, you understand what I'm saying? I mean, there's an example right here, that's where I'm getting it from.
And the particular spots that they're talking about, there is no impact on the travel lane. The issue that they will have is how does the person getting out of it gets access to the point where they get onto their docks? And that's
Okay.
something they're gonna have to manage.
Okay.
What, if I may, Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Counselor Susie, are you finished?
Yes.
Okay, great. Counselor Cheney, go right ahead.
Wes, I'm sorry, 5 feet is greater than would be into the travel portion.
Not necessarily, because it really depends upon, each individual right-of-way is different. The smallest normal right-of-way that we have is about 40 feet roughly. Some go a lot wider, some go smaller on the alley type size. So generally, in this particular area, if I remember right, the travel lane is 2 12-foot, so you got 20 foot in basically that right-of-way. So there's more than enough space to have, nose-in parking set up.
Not affecting the
Not
travel
affecting
portion.
this. That doesn't apply, and they've corrected it on the part of their plans in regards to the existing long boat dock, because that would totally be in the travel way.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more
Counselor
question.
Susie.
Chief, I see you're here in the back, okay? Do you foresee any impediment from any of your equipment?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing,
This is the hearing, right? So,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
I'm all set, thank you.
okay, all right.
Is that everything?
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Anyone else here in the audience who would like to speak during the public hearing? Well, she might stay, maybe ask her to stay around until we take it up under unfinished business.
How many spaces was that? 7? 7 spaces.
Seeing no further requests to come, I'm going to close the public hearing on this matter at 7:20 PM. Again, we'll be taking this up under unfinished business a little later. Item number 13B is a public hearing. The Laconia Fire Department Walmart grant acceptance. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the January 25th, 2023 edition of Laconia Daily Sun and posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. Action on this item as well may be taken up under unfinished business this evening. I'd like to open this public hearing at 7:21 PM. Anyone here who would like to speak to this matter, now would be the appropriate time. Like to close, seeing no one wants to speak to that matter, I'd like to close the public hearing at 7:22 PM. Item number 13C, which is public hearing on a request to increase sanitary sewer rates. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the January 26th, 2023 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. Action on this item may be taken up under unfinished business as well. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:22 PM. Anyone who would like to speak to this matter, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing no request to speak, I will close this hearing at 7:22 PM. Moving on to item number 14. This, under presentations, we have a presentation for Laconia Motorcycle Week from Jennifer Anderson and maybe even Charlie St. Clair. So step right up. Thank you.
Do I just plug this in, or do I need to do anything?
You should be all set. You just want to put it on presentation mode or something.
Yeah.
Mike had noted that Mr. St. Clair sent the brains of the outfit.
Thank you, Counselor, I appreciate that. Do I have to do anything on my,
You should be all set. I'm just gonna get it on the TV and for them.
I understand
Okay.
she even signs the checks.
I'm the brains, he's the beauty.
You haven't looked in a mirror in a while.
I wanna jump if you, I don't know what you're seeing.
On a minute ago.
I know. and
It
then-
was, yeah.
I can't see it when it goes. There we go. Okay, that'll be it.
Okay, so you can see it?
There you go.
Great, thanks for doing that, I appreciate that. Mr. Mayor, city councilors, thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate the opportunity. This is one of a presentation that we shared with the New Hampshire Business of Economic Affairs, and it occurred to us after the fact that it's been quite some time that we've done something, or I can't even remember last time that we've done something for the city. And I think the reason for that is because we all live this, and I think we, granted that we know it so well, and I'm sure a lot of the information that I'll share with you, you're definitely very familiar with, but I'm hoping that I have some new insights for you as well. So this is our 100th anniversary, which is really leading into a summary of our legacy. And so you can see from this photo, which is in, if you can believe it, 1918, and this is our very humble beginnings. Our Gypsy Tour began with just over a couple of hundred motorcyclists that then would began making an annual trip to Weirs Beach, which of course is our tourist area. And that would, at that time, because of the road conditions, take, a considerable amount of time if you were coming even from Massachusetts. So I would say pretty much at that point, the major interest were in like the motorcycle skill contests and the regular just touring around and riding, as well as, hold on, let me just get I just lost my thingamajiggy. Oh, that's all right, I can see it over there. As well as hill climbs, which originally began on Tower Street right in Weirs Beach, and now we have the honor to be able to host an exhibition on Tower Street, and it's very, very widely regarded and enjoyed. There was also a lot of activities over at Briar Motorsports Park and now New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and right up until 1965, the rally was full week long, and then, I think I did that, sorry. Fix that. There we go. And that was right through, from 1966 through 1990, the rally encompassed only 3 days and averaged right around that 40,000 people mark. So from there, you just take another good look at that image from 1918, because it does starkly change as we fast forward. And so we go from very humble beginnings to what has been called a world-class motorcycle rally. The official rally association was formed with Charlie at the helm in 1991 by local businesses and organizations that were really determined to bring the rally back to a full week so that the economy could really get the full benefits of having all of those tourists in the area. Attendance jumped from right around that 40,000 mark to well over 300,000 in the 9-day period. And we had a record-breaking over 400,000 in 2004, and typical average attendance is anywhere between probably the 3 to 325, depending on the 5-year period that you're kind of looking at. 2/3 of our visitors are from out of state, and The state of New Hampshire's average visitor spending is $437 per person. And the 5-year average of total visitor spending, which was from 2018 through 2022, was 1253.72 million. And so that is pretty considerable in terms of economy. Did it move? Did I skip one? Oh, okay. Doesn't like to show it on my side. So the highlights from a 2019 visitor survey that we had, and the reason that I used 2019 specifically was because it was more representative of what was average for us. 2020, of course, was very different, and then 2021 and 22 have also been remarkably different. So I think to get a better picture of a 5 to a 10-year average, I used the 2019 data. So 35% of folks stay for 3 to 4 nights. 17% stay for more than 5, and 19% are day trippers. So those would be from a further distance than you can probably imagine, certainly further than our counterparts out in Sturgis, where it takes a day to get anywhere. People can make a decision very last minute and come to join if their schedule is available and if weather is cooperating for them. So the average lodging occupancy during Motorcycle Week is 93% and 64 on the weekends and 64% midweek, and that is incredibly different, very, very stark difference from the week before and the week after the rally. It doesn't even come close to comparison. There's a 25% increase in occupancy in the first weekend. That is something that we've seen transition on leading up to 2019, which is pretty interesting. We really liken that to the fact that you have the full all-day experience for Saturday and Sunday, whereas on the second weekend, Sunday is typically cut short as people are trying to get back home. So 30% of our visitors are between 36 and 50 years old, and 48% are over 50. This is very standard in motorcycle demographics right now, although I will tell you that there has been definitely an increase in the younger markets, as well as in different types of motorcycles than what has been traditionally preferred. 42% of people stay further than 30 miles from Weirs Beach, which really increases the economic reach of our visitors. And there's a changing landscape. There's a sharp increase in attendance in the 90s, and then it kind of really plateaued off, or just plateaued. People staying further out of Laconia, and of course, you know, Laconia businesses want certainly all of the folks to stay right here. But it was more economical for people to stay a little bit further out, and then because no matter what direction you go, it's beautiful riding, it seemed to make sense. So businesses capitalized on this by hosting events outside of the Lakes region, and the White Mountains is a great example of that, and people scheduling tours even from the southern part of the state, that we've had some leave from Nashua and Manchester, like from Manchester Harley-Davidson, for example, coming up into the Lakes region. The population has aged as it has nationally and globally, so of course, Motorcycle Week and any event is really indicative of what we see in national trends. So we think that over time, the rally became more manageable and more profitable. Motorcycle enthusiasts had more time and money to spend, and the average household of income of visitors increased substantially throughout the 90s. So a lot of that contributed to what then led up to our really record-breaking year in 2004. So as a review, tourism in New Hampshire is a $5 billion industry. Spending in Belknap County was up by almost 3% in 2018 and up 2.8% statewide, and I'll share some figures more recently. So all of this adds up. If you look at the traffic reports from 2017, we saw a 13% increase in toll traffic data. And I track that from year to year, although some years it changes. And then the revenue sources for what we kind of consider the basis for the economic impact of the rally in terms of statewide impact would be toll revenue, your gasoline tax, meals and rooms, and then the business taxes. There's typically the Department of Revenue, I think it's around 14 taxes, excluding road and fuel tax, which represents 80% of the general revenue fund. So those sources for us average around $153 million to the state of New Hampshire, just from our 10 days. 2022, we are on the rise, and I think economically, in terms of tourism, this is something that we're seeing not just in New Hampshire, but throughout the country. New Hampshire visitor spending by commodity, I think, is pretty interesting. You see the large blue piece of the pie there is retail at 41%. And next is food, any food service except groceries. So like not going to the grocery store yourself. That's 19%, along with gas, and hotels at 11% and entertainment at 10%. So if you look at what that actually means in terms of numbers, 2018, New Hampshire visitor spending only in the spring, which I think is important to note that Motorcycle Week occurs in the off-peak hours, with it being in June. And so in 2018, we're at 1336 million. 2020, you can see the sharp decline there, and we all felt that impact, of course. And then 2022, in the spring, $71.2 million was spent just from visitors. That is not residents. So I think that's really remarkable. Statewide revenue, I found this really interesting that of the over 800 rooms and meals licenses, there are like 200 of them just in the Lakes region. So we are busy, and that's a great place to be. Our rooms and meals tax is the third highest revenue stream, and that is about $331 million. In June of 2021, it was $32.3 million. And that represents in tax $2.4 million, and that's really just incredible, I think. 2019, in June, you can see revenue was in the top four. It was $196 million, and I have figures there that show a comparison between May, June, and July, just to give you some idea. Again, with June not being in the peak season, and you look at 2019, June was $196 million in revenue compared to July at $96 million. So that's, I like to think, very largely in part due to Motorcycle Week's impact. All roads literally lead to Laconia. So going through these spreadsheets are a blast, I can tell you that. Traffic in Weirs Beach has stayed stable over a 10-year period, and then a sharp increase in 2021 and 2022. I think it was very noticeable for anyone. As I mentioned before, the first Saturday of the rally surpassed the second Saturday as the busiest in Weirs Beach, and that was measured using traffic counts over the bridge. This was again in 2019. Traffic on Route 11 in Alton increased by 40,000 vehicles during just the rally week, and that's only one avenue into Laconia. And in 2022, so very recent, New Hampshire toll revenue increased 8% to $137 million. So you can see the highway toll traffic during Motorcycle Week and then the actual month. In 2018, the way that the New Hampshire Bureau of Turnpikes or whomever was collecting and reporting the data changed. So it changed a little bit from only from Hooksett and Rochester tolls in 2018 and 2019. But still, I think it gives you a really interesting spread of the numbers and the impact of just our 9-day period in terms of the entire month of June. One of the things that I think all of us on the Motorcycle Week Association are so proud of is the fact that charitable organizations and nonprofits throughout the state and beyond are able to capitalize on the increase in attendees and an increase in visibility. And so these are just a few of our local ones. The Peter Macris Memorial Ride, which I know many of you are very familiar with, especially our city manager. And that is well over 400,000 to Easter Seals, Veterans Count, the CERT Emergency Response Team, and the Laconia Fire Water Rescue Team. Our nonprofit pet shelters, that includes New Hampshire Humane Society and Funds for Paws, which is another local nonprofit that helps other nonprofit agencies with funding for animals. And in 7 years of doing our May West Memorial Pet Run, we've raised, including this past year, $70,000. Then you can see one that I'm also very closely tied with is Laconia Rotary Club, and we on average raise $35,000 in revenue after costs that go directly back into the community through the awards and donations that we make from those proceeds. The Weirs Action Committee, which raises on average $20,000 towards their mission for the beautification of the Weirs, is something that, again, our taxpayers don't need to worry about having that additional burden if the rally didn't exist and they weren't able to do that. Then I listed several other charities that also benefit, and these are just the ones that are like right here. It doesn't even include all the ones that don't necessarily reach out to me. This is the most popular question probably that we get every year. Is what's happening this year? That's always the thing. Right behind, what's the weather going to be like? So it's the two most popular questions. And attractions and having things for people to do is the most important. And ideally, motorcycle-related events. And that can be a whole wide range of things, from something as simple as a motorcycle bike show, like the City of Laconia's bike show that we have at O-Pee-Chee Park on the Friday of the rally, with the proceeds going to the city. Or it could be something as large and loud as the hill climb at Gunstock, which this past year they were very happy with 6,600 attendees. Unfortunately, they had only purchased 5,000 wristbands, so they are increasing that this year to 10,000 wristbands. And racing at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, which has had racing like flat track to sport bike racing to vintage racing and sidecar racing, and how these people do it, is just a feat of a skill that I can't even comprehend. So this is an image that it's hard for you to see, but the young lady that is sitting on that perch is wearing a I Rode Laconia Passport sweatshirt, which is a program that we do that's free for people to participate in, and it's really just to incentivize them. You'd be amazed what people will do for a free sweatshirt. And it's to incentivize them to get out to ride throughout the state and even actually beyond. We really do feel that we are New Hampshire's tourism ambassadors, and when you look at that picture overlooking Weirs Beach, which would be on your right, and overlooking Winnipesaukee, it's not a hard job to be such a beauty's ambassador. So these are some of the things that we typically do. Our national press media coverage, our digital marketing, what we do through our website, our print advertising, and then attending other rallies and or trade shows. Those did take a pretty hard hit with COVID, but we still are able to attend shows and rallies. And we have a remarkable following from very dedicated, loyal fans that want to be a part of it. And I can tell you, even though I'm certainly biased, even outside of Motorcycle Week, if I'm traveling and someone says, "Where are you from?" and I say Laconia, they're like, "Hey, that's the place with the motorcycle rally." And I've heard many, many stories that are very similar to that. And so our efforts are really just speak to how proud our visitors are to be a part of this legacy of 100 years. We are the first. We are the first. And I like to tell people that Laconia is where rallies were invented. And they have certainly evolved over the years, but we're the ones that began it. We will be the ones that continue it and sustain it and enjoy watching how it evolves. So with that, I thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And here you have our city's lovely boardwalk with Rally headquarters.
Jennifer, thanks so much for this presentation, and I'm so glad that you did it because it really reminds us the impact that Laconia Motorcycle Week has on the local economy and it really statewide as well. And you talk about the pride your attendees have, and that's great. But I think all of us here are pretty proud of it as well. And I know you know that, but I think we're pretty proud to say we're from Laconia and this is what we do. And certainly when I think of the Motorcycle Association and what you've been through over the past few years with the pandemic, one word that comes to mind is just resilience. That you and Charlie and everyone you work with really, you persevered in a very challenging time with a lot of unknowns, and the fact that you came through it as well as you did and now it's ready to take off again, particularly on this 100th year, is really remarkable.
Well,
So-
I appreciate that. And I just, I hearken back to this image, which the very first one I showed of the 1918. And that was during a pandemic.
Right.
And it was one of the things although we missed 7 years due to other national and world events, we were very fortunate to have such a dedicated partnership with the city and all departments, and as well as the state of New Hampshire, to be able to host it in 2020, even at a later date. I think that something that sets us apart, our association and our city apart from other rallies that we're familiar with and that we work with, is that we really do feel like it is a true partnership, that we're all working for the same end goal, that everyone enjoys the fact that we were the first and that we want to see it be successful and safe and beneficial for our businesses and residents and for our visitors, and so that they come back next year. So I appreciate those relationships that we've had with all of you for such a long time, and look forward to continuing that and celebrating it during the 100th anniversary.
Are we going to have the kickoff press conference at the Colonial again this year?
We are. We were, that was just such a delight to be able to have it back home in Laconia last year, and I can't think of a more perfect and beautiful venue. So we've already booked the date, and all sorts of people have already reached out, looking forward to attending that.
And do you have enough rally patrons yet?
No, we always need more.
You do?
Always need
Okay,
more
and
rally
how much does it
patrons.
cost to be a rally patron?
It's only $200, and as a state of New Hampshire nonprofit, that is one of the ways that we raise money so that we can market to get people to come here.
Well, I hope my fellow councilors would join me in renewing our rally patron status. I'm sure you'll offer a patron status to anybody who makes a contribution, even if it's
course.
not quite 200 based on individual budgets.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
All right,
Yep.
great. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
again,
much,
Charlie.
everyone.
And thank you for letting Jennifer speak.
It was a pleasure.
He's not.
That's great. I'm going to forego the mayor's report right now, and we'll go to council comments immediately. Any council comments? Yes.
Just three, very quickly. I did attend the Lake Public Access meeting. That's their first meeting since the holidays. They're working on their budget, and they, like everyone else, is suffering from the high price of utilities. Second of all, the Heritage Commission has a new chairman, that's Marjorie Wilkins, and Councilor Felch and I attended the Laconia Historical and Museum annual meeting. They've got some great programs coming up, and the only thing I would suggest to the council, stay tuned.
All right, all right. Thank you. Counselor Cheney, just going to pull you out of your shell.
No, I'm
You okay?
Thank you very much.
No problem. So are there any committee reports this evening? Committee reports, how about liaison reports? Seeing none. Right now, item number 19 is citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. If there's a current agenda item you'd like to speak to, now would be the appropriate time. I think the only reason we're going to let you speak tonight is that you do have a great tie, which is a classic sitcom Taxi.
And a demonstration of why you sat here to represent.
Welcome, Representative St.
Thank you
Clair.
very much. Just quickly, I just want to follow up on something Jen had talked about. Obviously, the revenue to the state. And again, we've got a rep right behind me here too, so I'm glad he's here to hear this. I just wish we could, as a city, I know you guys all approve this, but again, to get the state to give us back some of this meals and rooms tax, more of it. I think the state, we had a bill back a while ago which would give cities and towns the right to put a occupancy tax or something like that, fee, whatever you want to call it, on beds. And it didn't mean it had to happen. Portsmouth was in favor of it. But it meant that if a town or city government said, you know what, we're going to put this in effect, it would give us the right to do it. And I know, I've told many of you this before, that, as you know, may know, the city of Sturgis has a city sales tax. They have a county sales tax, and they have a state sales tax. And the city raises their sales tax, their city sales tax, from 3% to 5% or something like that for the month of August, just to cover the rally. And I can assure you that as a visitor and all the other visitors, I never hear anybody complain about that. We just pay it. But that money goes directly to the city of Sturgis to help them pay for an awful lot of municipality things to lighten the load on the city residents. And I just wish that that's something this state, it's not you guys, but there's such backward thinkers down there. That's not. So the other thing, well, it's true.
I understand.
You know that.
Yes.
And you can quote me on that. But the other thing I want to speak about, which is on the agenda, and I've spoken about it before, is the sidewalk situation, the parking spaces there on Elm Street. And I just want to assure you that everything I said before, I still say. But since that last meeting, I've had several residents, a few of them that don't know me personally, who've come up and said, hey, just so you know, I heard about what you said at the city council meeting, and they're not in favor of the city giving up the control of those parking spaces on Elm Street. They're all about limiting parking there, again with signage or meters or whatever, but not for the city to give up control on that, because they think it, as I do, a bad precedent. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other citizens request to speak on current agenda items? Welcome, Mr. Wood.
Patrick Wood, Ward 1 on Shore Drive. Just echoing the final comments that Representative Charlie indicated with regard to the parking in on Elm Street and Railroad Avenue. Many years ago, I read an explanation of a construction of a dormitory at a college, and it was a quad, so there was a central part of the development, and the architect did not put any sidewalks in. And everyone asked, well, why didn't you propose sidewalks? And he said, well, just wait. So they did. And next year, they looked at it, and he said, see those paths? That's where everyone walks. That's where you want to put your sidewalks. So I would suggest sort of the same approach with this parking issue. We don't know what the impact is going to be upon Lakeport with this new development. We know it's going to be positive, but we don't know to what degree. And maybe our best way to look at this parking situation is to wait and see what happens, and then make a decision based upon that information, what can be done. Because right now, we don't know, and we would be trying to guess at what's appropriate. So I would suggest that we put this on the back burner until we've had a chance to see how the development actually works. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Appreciate your comments. Any other requests to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 20, which is the city manager's report, and turn it over to our city manager, Kirk Biotti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your packet, you'll have your financial and operational trends report for ending of January. You'll see that the building permits, it was a good month. It was a pretty significant increase right there. So, nice to see us over the $50 million mark. Fire rescue calls, relatively unchanged. Another increase this month in our request for welfare public assistance. You'll see where we stand right now. $40,000 is budgeted in that account. And we're expecting to see an increase over the next few months, and our next big question mark will be in April as the emergency assistance runs out again, if it doesn't get extended at all through any other means. Next page, police numbers are, again, standard, pretty much everything right there. Property tax collection, we're right hitting our average. We're at just under 98%, which is average for where we want to be in collection right now. Motor vehicle registration is down just slightly, but nothing to be concerned about. Next page brings us to our overtime data. Again, we're seeing the same patterns we've seen over the last couple of years for what's being spent with overtime, and we'll continue to track that. Parks and Rec, no changes there. Grievances, we have nothing else out right now, and the majority of the rest of that page is unchanged. At the bottom, you'll notice that code office statistics are in there now. That was a request by the council to add this. We'll be expanding on this over the next few months and sort of getting it bearings to what we want it to look like, but this gets us started.
If I may.
We will,
Why don't we let him finish?
what they included was the building permits issued, codes inspections, which is them actually going out and physically doing inspections, demo permits, and then any property maintenance action. They do a lot of going out and looking at property maintenance issues, issuing violations, issuing orders to clean up, those types of things, and that's what's included in there. Next page brings us to boat tax, which is down a little bit, but it's expected at this point because the time of the year we're in. The revenue and expenditures are in good position. And the bottom of the next page and the top of the page after talks about the storm issues that we've been having, or the cost of the storms. December was a busy month, so there's a lot of money in that. January wasn't as bad. Most of our accounts that are on the next page are within where they need to be. Overtime is running low on that, but again, looking back at what we have in the stabilization account of just over 165,000, we're fine with where we stand right now, and with the projected weather over the next couple of weeks, we're really doing well in that line right there. Normally, I would go on and discuss the EMS status. It's not included in this today. I have a little bit more to talk about that, but I know there was a question about something I had. I don't know if you want to just do that now before I move on to the EMS section. I'm fine with that. Mr. Mayor.
Go right ahead, Councilor Susie.
My only question is that the request into the code office stats, that we add one more line in there, like fiscal year to date, if possible. I'm just trying to marry those numbers to billing permits and all.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, absolutely. We can get that added to it. For this part of the presentation is, like I said, normally when I do the EMS billing, I brought with me Chief Joubert and Deputy Chief Bean for questions. I'm not going to go through the packet completely. The question was asked, we've been running the EMS now out of the fire department, separate from the hospital for 4 years. The question got asked how we stand financially with this enterprise fund and our expenditures and revenues. Again, I'm not going to go through each page of this piece by piece because we're just looking at what we have for numbers. But I think that this breakdown that the fire department did for us It gives a nice overview of what, how the process works for billing and where it has stood. You'll notice on the, not counting the cover page, the second page in, our EMS billing rates are in there. That question gets asked a lot. We did update those numbers at the end of 2021. It's usually, a 3-year-ish review of when we'd want to adjust them. So we're still working in those right now, and we'll for a little while longer. The next 4 pages would be each breakdown of an individual year. And this is what you see every month in your operational trends report anyhow, so you should be relatively familiar with those. There's a page listed after those charts on payer mix. I think that this is just interesting. You'll notice that 73% of our what we bill are Medicare and Medicaid. And the reason those come up like that is that it does limit on what we're allowed to bill for. So even when the fire department does a full billing, it doesn't always get, you're not always allowed to collect that amount of money. And that's what's shown in the gross versus net billing that I show you every month. And again, if you guys have any questions, like I said, I can answer what I can, and I did bring those guys with me. So I'll let you flip through the rest of it. But I want to talk now about, and it's not, this isn't in, it's partially in your packet, but I have it broken down a little more. The question I was asked, the payments versus expenditures. So since we've started this, we have received $3.6 million in payments that we've actually put into our pocket. We've also included another $15,000 for training that Deputy Chief Bean provides to the not only to outside departments. Another $236,000 in ARPA money, which came in for the loss of revenue that was expected during the COVID time that we received. Which a lot of that went through the fire department, went through the finance director. They were the ones that did all the work on receiving that money. Brings us to $3.9 million in total revenue, money that we put in the pocket during that time. We spent in actual expense $4.2 million. So there was a loss of about $347,000. That includes the FY22, which because there's still a lot of money being collected that month. We're estimating probably another $120,000 to $125,000 to be collected just in that year alone to bring us up to what our collection rate normally is. All outstanding debt that you see in there is still potentially collectible. You usually get some early quick dumps of money into the account after you send the bills out, and then it slows down a little bit, and then you start trickling in. So the money does continue to trickle in. So even when you look at, maybe last year and you say, well, we haven't collected much over the last, there's still $30,000, $40,000 outstanding, and then all of a sudden you look and it's only $25,000. Well, there is still money that continues to trickle in. If we were able to get to that total point, that's at $4.3 million that we should be allowed to be able to collect. And again, with our actual expense being $4.2 million, our estimates are actually right on the money. What we should be, and we all know, and Council Littman knows from his, you don't always, even what you're allowed to collect, you don't always collect, but we try to get as close as we can. So our estimates and our expenditures are really relatively close to each other. After this year's offset, that additional, again, probably $120,000 coming in, it puts us at about $56,000 a year that we missed out on collecting. That would have brought us back to zero. And again, that money pays for a deputy chief of EMS, 4 firefighters, which is a half of an ambulance, because 1 per shift, so half an ambulance, and everything from Band-Aids to an ambulance, and it's everything in between. Which is what we took over when we took it back from the hospital in 2018. So that's where we stand financially with that. Again, if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them, and I have the 2 chiefs with me here as well if you have any questions for them.
Thank you, Kirk. There's a lot of great information in this. There's a lot to digest, certainly. I don't have a specific question right now in regards to this. I don't look to my counselors if you have a specific question. Go ahead, Counselor Susie.
Just, okay, and it's remarkable, I think, what your collection rate is compared to, you know, some stuff you have to write off as a bad debt, you might say. Do you have any historical or any knowledge compared us to other cities in the state?
It's such a tough question to answer because even if I do, the demographics could be different. And that's really, so yes, there are communities that collect at really high percentages and then there's some that collect on lower end. I mean, I would put us, just the ones I know of, I would probably put us around the middle. But certainly not, again, a lot of it comes down to payer mix.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think they do a great job there, so.
Yeah, and this is, again, I give credit to the fire department. All this information was either through the fire department, through Chief Bean, or through Glenn, who put these numbers together. They work closely with our billing company and our collections company if it goes beyond billing to try to make sure that we collect as much as we can.
Great. You know, I would suggest maybe the council and myself take a couple of weeks to sift through this here and maybe get back to you individually as to whether there are questions that counselors or myself would like to have answered, and certainly if you can't answer, reaching out to Deputy Chief Bean if we need him
Absolutely.
there at the
Be
next
glad
meeting
to.
perhaps.
Yep.
Council, let me go right ahead.
From my vantage point and what I do outside of being a city councilor, to see what's going on in this state and in other states around us, and that what's different than maybe 5 years ago when we were considering this is the difficulty in terms of other communities getting their EMS needs fulfilled. I get concerns expressed by nursing homes, by hospitals, about their ability to accomplish transfers without challenge. And so it's a little bit of a hidden asset that we maybe don't appreciate as a city, to be able to have, if you will, the guarantee if our community needs to get somewhere else that they can. And it's something we probably all taken for granted, but like it was, I think, state of Maine had a commission that just put together to keep their EMS system together. They talked about, this commission recommended like a $70 million investment. You know, Maine's a little bit different in terms of the territory they have to cover, but you know, it's an area that we should all have some awareness to, that don't take it for granted.
Thank you. Councilor Cheney.
I feel forced to say, I've made wisecracks in the past about being a retired cop and thinking that all firemen did was make spaghetti dinners. But what's important to me now is, first with Kirk and now with our new chief, I see a talent that makes these numbers happen. I don't think these are bad at all. In fact, I'm shocked at how good they are. But more important than that is, when they show up at your door, they're as good as they get. I've dealt with EMS folks and paramedics all over the world, all over the country, and one or two places around the world. These people are as good as they get. We ought to be thankful that we have a slight shortfall for the quality of the people and the service that we're getting from the Laconia Fire Department. I'm sorry.
No apology necessary.
Thank you.
Your time. Any other comments on this?
Yeah.
Yes, Councilor.
Just quick. Kurt, I just see snippets every once in a while. Is there a problem with the state paying for the Court Street Bridge?
I'm like, how does the state gonna go with it?
Every 3-4 weeks, I see a comment about they've got to go back to the state asking to get paid for the Court Street Bridge.
I could put, yeah.
Could you?
I could put it quite simply, the same shortfall everybody's experienced, they are. I finally got them off their, I'll put it appropriately, off their butt, and they started working it. So now it's back on us. We gotta give them a little bit more data, hopefully, by the end of this month, we'll have a decision on how much we're actually getting back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
They were real short people.
All right, so that's item number 20. We move on to item number 21 right now. Chief and Deputy Chief, thanks for coming tonight, and thanks for your work in putting this together. Moving on to item number 21. So this is 21A, request to reappoint Wes Anderson, Public Works Director, as the city's representative to the Winnipesaukee River Basin Program Board. Wes has been the city's representative to the Winnipesaukee River Basin Program since 2016, and with the council's approval, he's agreed to continue this role. The WRPB has indicated that Laconia is the only member of the board that sets an expiration date for their representative. To ensure continuity, we are requesting that his reappointment be open-ended with no expiration date. Emperor for life.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion there, I guess. There's a motion, seconded. So, got that motion by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Felch. Is there further discussion on
Yeah,
this move?
I'm supportive of it, but I'm not supportive of the open-ended nature of it. I think it's important to revisit it now and then. I don't think we have any other position in the city that's open-ended.
I would agree with that assessment, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments on the motion that's on the table right now? No? Go right ahead. If you-
I would say with it open-ended, it doesn't even state if he's even an employee of Laconia still, so I would agree with that.
So do I amend the motion?
Take a
No,
friendly amendment to drop the component of it.
Well, the only motion that we have right now is the motion for an open-ended appointment. It's not
Right.
on appointing him. So, I mean, I think your I don't think I took a full motion here. It was only on the appointment, the length of the term. So, we've got a motion on the table here.
I think our motion was to reappoint him, if I'm right.
My original motion was to reappoint him, but I'd like to remove that if possible and go back to the open-ended discussion. I think that's what Henry's talking about.
Okay,
I guess what you're saying is we don't have to because the motion is just about appointing him? Is that what you're saying?
no, I was thinking it was the open-ended portion of it for the appointment,
I was more-
because
it
I
was to
didn't see it,
reappoint him.
it's not part of the original motion right here.
Right,
So, I hadn't read the original motion.
I'm
That's all-
sorry.
That's okay. That's all right.
but I'd like to bring that back, and we should do something about the open-ended.
I think we can amend that.
Well, that's not in the
Let's
motion.
amend it. Mhm.
How long you thinking, Henry?
I think, what is the current term? What is the current term? 2 years?
3 years, I think.
3 years?
Right, we said 3 years, yeah.
That's fine.
Well,
Yeah, I don't have a
3
problem
years,
with
but let me ask you this, Henry, may I?
Sure.
Please.
As an employee, I mean, in other words, if Wes comes off, the city, does it get redone or relooked at?
I think that the
We want that
council generally and every other position keeps some component of being able to reassess performance in every position.
Right.
Including our own. So,
Okay.
Okay, so to clarify the motion that you intended, that is a motion to move to reappoint Wesley Anderson, Public Works Director, as the city's representative in the Winnipesaukee River Basin Program, period.
That's the motion.
That's the
That's the
motion
motion.
that that's on the table right now.
Right.
Okay.
So that's without a 3-year,
I think we're keeping it as it is right now, unless with this motion, I mean, we could put a friendly amendment on that, if you like, that says,
For 3
for a
years.
3-year period.
I agree.
That's what I was looking to do.
Someone make that motion for an amendment. Counselor Felch?
Sure.
Seconded by Counselor Susie?
Yep.
All right, so any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. So on the amendment, it's 5-0. Now, on this motion as amended, there's no further discussion on it. All those in favor of this, it's 5-0. Motion as amended has been approved. Thank you, Wes. Item number 21B, which is a request to approve extension of city water and sewer services to the portion of Mountain Lake Village LLC that lies in Belmont. Kirk, would you like to walk us through this just a little bit?
Sure. So off of Mile Hill Road, there's a 48-unit housing complex that's going to be going up in there. 30 will be in Laconia. There's 18 in Belmont. We'll be extending with the approval of this. I will sign off on extending the water and sewer lines to those 18 houses, so they'll become customers of Laconia. For water, for billing purposes, for sewer, it'll still be attached to the amount that that Belmont's allowed to put into the Winnipesaukee River Basin program, so it won't be affecting the amount of sewage that the city of Laconia puts in. We'll collect the billing on that, just in the same way that we do with any house in Laconia. So it'll be essentially for billing and all those purposes, it'll be like this is all in Laconia.
Okay. So this request and report was submitted by Ben Crawford, Water Department Superintendent, and Wes Anderson, Director of Public Works, right?
Yes, correct.
So right now, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the request to extend city water and sewer services to the portion of Mountain Lake Village LLC that lies in Belmont as presented, and to authorize the city manager to execute any required documents in relation to the extension. So made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Felch. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Counselor Susie.
A question for Wes. Wes, we know the situation we have with Belmont on the, this is outside of that, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
And he knows what I'm talking about.
No, yeah, right, good.
We all know what you're talking about.
Right, okay. Any other discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Item number 21C, Resolution 2023-02, request to submit a grant application and accept grant funding from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund for wastewater and stormwater asset management. Wes, Wes, you're sitting there. Kirk, could you walk us through this just a little bit?
Yeah, and again, Wes will be here if I can't go too deep into this, but this is a fully funded grant program through DES with ARPA money. It will there'll be an asset management program, condition assessment, determination of service goals, critical assessment of everything we own. So it's more of a planning grant to see how we're doing with our storm and wastewater and make determinations on how we need to move forward to keep the system running appropriately and cost efficiently for the city. And again, there's no match to this, so.
There's no match, and it's not, even though it comes from the revolving loan fund, it's actually a grant, so there's no
grant.
repaying it.
Correct.
Okay.
Let's get 6 more of those. Let's get 6 more
Okay,
of those.
so first things first, looking for a motion to waive a reading of Resolution 2023-02 in its entirety and to read by title only, so made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Secondly, I'm looking to move a first reading of Resolution 2023-02 relative to authorizing application and acceptance of $90,000 grant funding from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund for wastewater and stormwater asset management. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Susie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. And finally, looking to move to schedule a public hearing on February 27, 2023, during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. All right, moving on to item number 21D, which is the first reading of Resolution 2023-03 relative to the acceptance of the New Hampshire Department of Safety, Homeland Security, and Emergency Management Grant in the amount of $20,948.28. Kirk, would you walk us through that briefly as well?
Yeah, this was a grant that the police department is working on right now, and I believe, yep, he's here if you have any questions for him. They're looking to purchase night vision devices for their work with the Belknap County SWAT team that they do, and Laconia Police is very active with that, with the special operations team out of Belknap County. They have this opportunity to buy, to get the grant for these devices. There's no match to the community, so it's just a fully funded grant.
Terrific. Okay, so looking at a series of 3 motions right now, looking for a motion to waive a reading of the Resolution 2023-03 in its entirety and read by title only, so made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Secondly, looking to move a first reading of Resolution 2023-03 relative to the acceptance of the New Hampshire Department of Safety Homeland Security Grant in the amount of $20,948.28 to fund the purchase of 4 sets of night vision devices to be used in search and rescue operations by the Belknap County SWAT team. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Finally, looking for, to move to schedule a public hearing on February 27th during the regular council meeting to gather public input prior to adoption of Resolution 2023-03, so made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Susie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 22A, which is a request to approve angled parking at the public hearing earlier this evening. Planning Board has an application pending from Naughty Marina on Winnisquam Avenue for a redevelopment of the marina. Part of the proposal, as we know, is Naughty Marina wants to have angled parking, head-in parking, on a limited section of Winnisquam Avenue under RSA 265:71 dash I, Roman 3. Angled parking is permitted with authorization from the City Council. The applicant has approached Ward Councilor Mark Haynes about the council approving angled parking at the site. Historically, the previous owner had angled parking on a longer section of Winnisquam Avenue. This requires a change to Parking Ordinance 221, parking, standing, and stopping, Section 28, angled parking. A proposed amendment to the ordinance is attached to your packet. Public hearing was held, as I said, earlier this evening. So right now, I'll be looking for a motion, a series of 3 motions. First one is to move waive a reading of this ordinance in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of this motion, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 3 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Second, we're looking to move a second reading of ordinance 2023-221-28, angled parking, to allow angled parking on a limited section of Winnisquam Avenue. So made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Felch. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. And finally, looking to move to approve ordinance 2023-21-28, angled parking, to allow angled parking on a limited section of Winnisquam Avenue and authorize the city manager to sign any required documents. So made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Felch. Is there any further discussion on this final motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. This item number 22B, Laconia Fire Department, Walmart grant acceptance. This was a public hearing. Was this public hearing earlier tonight? I think it was, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it was public hearing, excuse me. This is an acceptance of a grant award of $22,500 for the purchase of medication pumps, associated equipment, and various EMS training. There is no match from the city. The grant acceptance is recommended due to the IV medication pumps with associated equipment being required at the ALS level and the benefit of increased EMS training. Because of the amount of the grant, a public hearing was required, and as I indicated, was held earlier this evening. This request is put in by our fire chief, Tim Jubert. Right now, we have a series of 3 motions. The first is to waive a reading of the resolution 2023-01 in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative. Secondly, to move a motion to move a second reading of resolution 2023-01 relative to the acceptance of Walmart community grant in the amount of $22,500 for the Laconia Fire Department. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Susie. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, your trigger fingers. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. And finally, looking for a motion to move to approve acceptance of the Walmart community grant in the amount of $22,500 for the Laconia Fire Department and authorize the city manager to sign any required documents. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you. Turn this one over to you, City Manager. And item number 22C on our agenda is a request to increase sanitary sewer rates, which we've been working with on for a little while. So Kirk, if you would take this just for a
Yeah, absolutely. Little 30,000 foot view of it. So we were, we saw the presentation a few months ago in which we, the significant increase from what we're expecting in our sanitary sewer fund needs over the next couple of years. Partly with what we need to do city-wise, but also with our increased dues to the Winnipesaukee River Basin Program. There was a pretty significant increase that we were gonna be asking for, the ratepayers to take on to cover that cost. We started working with the Finance Subcommittee. We were able to get the percentage of increases down, the 10-year plan in here, but over the next 3 years, we've been able to get it down to under 10% each year, 6%, 9%, 9% over the next 3 years. We did that by deferring some of the cost by going out, we'll get 3 $1 million bonds over the next 9 years, and it'll defer that cost and be able to spread out the burden to the taxpayer and the rate user in general over the next period of that time frame, as opposed to doing it all at once. The Finance Subcommittee came to an agreement on what that was going to be able to burden the community with, and we were able to put those numbers into what we tried to do, and I think we've come to an agreement on what's going to work, and we'll be able to get what we need to from the city standpoint, budgeting wise. And again, it'll help defray some of those costs longer down the road, as opposed to trying to do it all at once.
Thank you very much, Kirk. I certainly appreciate Councilor Littman's work on this and sort of trying to mitigate rate shock on this and draw it out a little bit. Go right ahead, Councilor Cheney.
I would like to compliment Councilor Littman. This would have been easy to just approve. And it would have been easy to sit around and complain about it and whatever. Henry dug in and found a way to make it work, and between him and the staff, I'm glad to have been here and watch it happen, and Henry, kudos.
Yep.
I think it's about prioritizing not only the needs of the city, but also prioritizing how this impacts ratepayers.
Exactly.
Right? And I think that's really important, so thank you.
Thank you. It was really a team effort, and it wouldn't have happened if the team didn't work together. And the other issue is tried to do is, the current expenses, everybody understands you have to pay those. The capital expenses, rather than putting the burden on the current payers, is to allow future payers to participate in it, and that's how we're able to get it down. It's still a higher amount than we'd like, but realistically, we have to pay our current bills, electric rates and other things cost more, and we're all seeing that in our home.
Sure.
Yep.
All right, thank you all. So we have a series of 3 motions right now. The first one is to move a waive a reading of this ordinance in its entirety and to read by title only, so made by Councilor Cheney, second by Councilor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Secondly, looking for a motion to move to approve the second reading of ordinance 2023-189-50-01, an ordinance amending chapter 189-50 sewer charges. So made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Susie. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. And finally, looking to move to approve ordinance 2023-189-50-01, an ordinance amending chapter 185-50 sewer charges as presented. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Felch. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes as well. Thank you again. Moving on to item number 22D, which is granting an easement on city land, parcel number 458-205-20,
Mr. Mayor, if I could interrupt before you read the whole thing.
I'm not going to, I'm just gonna
This is
look at
not
you.
ready. This is not ready.
There'd be a motion to table this?
Yeah, please.
That's already tabled.
It's already on the table.
Oh, I
Just
gotta
don't
take it
come
off
off.
the
Yep,
table?
yep.
Yep.
All right. Easy as that.
Hopefully, next meeting.
All right, terrific. Fantastic, 22E, which is parking options requested by Paugus Properties LLC for the property at 51 Elm Street in Lakeport. I think we've all discussed this a fair amount, and I know, once again, Councilor Lippman has been hard at work trying to find something that makes good sense for the city, as well as from the perspective of the developer as well. And I think legal counsel has put together something for our eyes right now to take a look at. So I'd ask Kirk if you would pass that around. So I think the first thing we need to do is, this has been tabled, so I'd be looking for a motion to take it off the table so we can commence discussion. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Off the table, is it a roll call, or is it just a raise your hands? No debate.
Raise your hand.
Now, all in favor of taking it off the table? 5 votes in the affirmative, item is off the table. So what you're looking at right here, and Henry, I'm happy to defer to you because I know you were very intimately involved in this, if you like.
I guess that maybe just a few introductory things. I think, we took public testimony on some concerns that residents of Lakeport had. I think one of the concerns that is, I think, left so that sort of the status quo prevails is the parking lot that was, that the museum accesses. That turns out to be, upon further review, state property. The second thing is, trying to come up with something that's different because of the geography that we're dealing with. In the downtown area, we've been able to acquire parking and make parking because there's been geography to be able to accomplish that. We bought the parking lot behind the church. We've got space in the city lot and along the roadway there. It's like, what could we do to maximize the available landscape that we currently have? And so what we tried to do was come up something that was driven not on the owner, but on the patron's use of being able to access businesses, which they've historically been able to access in and around the buildings that were previously there, while still giving, allowing a temporary use of that, while still giving additional use to people to be able to use those spaces. And I think people could find reason not to like it from both the 51 Elm Street perspective and from the perspective of the greater Lakeport community there. But I think if you kind of look at, trying to support some development, I think if we just sort of leave it on the table and let it happen, the issue is that, I think this development and any potential future development, there's got to be sort of some level of partnership here. And I know that what's included in here, I think, represents a unique use, and if it was a precedent, it would be a precedent that we could enjoy to use in other development around the city. So with that, maybe we could ask either the manager, if you've worked more with the council, to sort of walk through the major components of the project. But I think it involves a licensing concept. If you think about what we do on our boardwalk, we license property for people to use to in that instance, in some cases, generate income as a nonprofit, in other cases for business use.
Yep.
And kind of model it after that kind of limited use perspective.
Correct. So this is a limited license agreement as opposed to a lease. I just kind of hit some of the highlights. A lot of this is legal speak when you look through this, but I'll just want to hit a couple of high points. Page 2, under 5.1, it discussed the,
Good manager, just,
Yep.
so we work with council and our, and Primex, our insurer.
Yes.
On,
this is, yep, this has gone through our city council, legal counsel, yeah, as well as Primex has seen this and given their recommendations, which were very little, but we made some adjustments that way. Page 2, 5.1, it's a 5-year license agreement, the first one. But after 1 year, it gives you the opportunity to sit down with the owners and you and look to determine if there changes need to take place, if something's not working. So it gives a little bit of an out if needed, but in general, it's going to be a 5-year lease agreement. Page 3, 5.3, this is a license agreement. So it's $10,000 per year to have the license agreement to be able to use this limited license. Included in that 5.3 in the second paragraph, it talks about in kind or in lieu of. So the $10,000 per year, they do a project that betters something in that area, say betterment to the WOW Trail or something along those lines. That money that they put towards that can use as an in kind or an in lieu towards that $10,000. Obviously, a 5-year agreement, it's $50,000. They do a $50,000 project that would help them with their in kind, in lieu money. 5.4, that defines what their limited exclusivity is to it. So they will have exclusive use, but during only certain time frames. And you can see how it was spaced out. I won't read through them. Certain parking spaces have certain times. The majority of them are what would be considered during business hours, maybe even a little bit extended business hours. Not sure exactly all the businesses that are going in there, but tried to fit what would fit those potential businesses. The 6.4 on page 5, that is something we, as we do with any property, so there is a tax by state RSA. We have to tax any property, city property that is used by somebody else, so that's just standard in there, but that is included in there. At $1,000 per space is what we valued each parking space at.
And that's the same dollar amount that was done previously, is that
Correct. That's what we use, pretty standard, or not standard for any parking spot. 7.2 gets into inspections and maintenance. So we'll inspect with them to see what conditions look like of the spots, and they would be, if this is agreed upon, they would be required to handle the maintenance in those spots. Other than that, the rest of it is those are really the highlights of it. There's a lot of information there. A lot of it is legal protections. Those are your highlights.
So, thank you very much, Kirk, and I think I know the desire here in the city has been, one, we appreciate the fact that we're stewards of municipal property, and that, if we're going to offer a license to use an exclusive license for limited periods of time to a private entity, we have to protect the public's interest. And I think this license accomplishes that, in that, and I think what it also allows us to do is sort of navigate this this area where we are good stewards of municipal property, but we are also want to continue to encourage development within the city and work closely and collaboratively with developers who want to come in. And I think all of us have gotten to know the developer, Scott Everett, and his team, and we've spent an awful lot of time meeting with him and discussing various projects, not just this 51 Elm Street, but some of the ideas that might be interested in enhancing all of Lakeport. So I think this license agreement and that $10,000 per year, which could be offset with anything that benefits the public good and the residents of the city. And also the city is in sort of the driver's seat there in that it can't just be a project that that the developer decides to do that we don't have any interest in. It's gotta be something that we sign off on and say, you know, this is the type of traffic study or parking study or widening sidewalks, putting better lighting in, things like that, things that we can see a true benefit to. And, you know, I would say that, you know, always trust but verify, but I think in dealing with Scott Everett and his development team, you know, I feel like it's a very good relationship, and I am a believer that he is committed to the well-being of the city and the improvement of Lakeport. So, you know, I'm feeling good that where we started out and where we've gotten to here through an awful lot of hard work. And I'll open it up to other discussion here, if you so like, from the counselors.
The only comment, I'm looking at actual, the 5.4, page 3.
You might count
5.4,
yes.
page 3. I think the thing that's very positive, no event shall any parking place within the premises be utilized more than 2 consecutive hours. I
Yep.
think that's a constant turnover, and I think that if there was any concern from the general public, that took care of that concern.
Well, yeah, and I think you and I have discussed that, Counselor Susie, and that who's going to be using these spots, but primarily, we think it's gonna be people from our community.
Exactly.
Coming in, doing business at the retail end of it, and turning over those spots. So, you know, and the idea that the developer will take care of maintenance on this, and, now it's pretty important as well. So it's not just using it and grading something, it's actually using it and maintaining it, if not enhancing the value. And I think, you know, as we see, he's enhanced the value of Lakeport significantly, and I know that if we keep working well together, it will continue to grow there, and his investment will continue to grow.
I want to thank, I know Henry did a lot of work on this too, along with you on this, and really, it's a good job, real good job.
Counselor Cheney.
I'm a little confused, because I read the 1-year review. It shall be a 5-year, but upon the 1-year anniversary, blah, 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 blah. You go over to 7.3, it says, other than the case of default, as set forth within the agreement, this license cannot be terminated prior to the expiration date without the written consent of both parties. And I'm not sure that fits with the 1-year anniversary. If it does,
If I can explain that maybe. So I think how that sort of goes together, the license itself doesn't expire, but how the spaces might, I think using the analogy of, that was used earlier about the quad and people going different ways, this allows us to revisit how the spaces are actually being used while still maintaining the overall license over the term.
but for the sake of discussion,
Yep.
if we don't like the way this path is going, we can't terminate it.
I think what it does we're in it in bed together, if you will,
Yep,
to work
no, I
it
get
out,
that.
just as we are today to get it to work out, you know what I'm saying, is that I think both parties approaching it in good faith of trying to make it work, and that, you know, we may find that we may need to make adjustments.
I think, you know, I
Yes.
worry about good faith.
Yeah, no,
Because I've had more than my share of, you know, this is gonna be just wonderful, and it ain't.
So I think one thing we've talked about here is that from the developer's perspective, if someone is coming in and signing a lease on that ground floor for 5 or 10 years, that they would hope to have a 5 or 10 year, have parking squared away for that 5 or 10 years. I think what this allows us to do is perhaps go back
Yep.
and make amendments on this, so we can see what's working and see what isn't working in an area of opportunity to change. So I hear what you're saying, and I respect what you're saying.
Listen, I'm fine with this, but I just would like to see a little strengthening of if we go back and want to adjust something that, I don't,
I think the
fortunately for me, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. No no insult intended, Mr. Mayor.
I wasn't a good lawyer.
That makes you a good lawyer. I just would, before we finish this up, I just wish we could tweak that just a wee bit. I mean, I'm prepared to vote tonight that we go ahead with this, subject to,
I'm gonna say, I can see where this is, I'm gonna say a few things here, but I see where that's coming from. It's like a 1-year trial period.
Yep.
And I get that. The other thing is, I think we've heard from the public, and nobody agrees with it, that I've heard. Second, we mentioned him working with us. We have a problem with Park Street where we need an easement to take it over by the city, and he won't give us that easement. So is that working with us? So I'm also going, I'm not gonna do it right now, but I'm gonna table this because I was just handed this. And I think there should be another public hearing, because the public doesn't know what this says.
if I just might add, you know, I didn't mean anybody that liked the Colonial Theater 5 years ago. You know, so I hear what you're saying, and I don't totally disagree. But he's put a lot into Lakeport, and I think
Well-
he's shown good faith.
He has, and he's bought up a lot of property that he could put parking on if he
Yep,
wanted to.
and I'm not sure I disagree with you about Park Street either, but I am concerned, Mr. Mayor, about,
Can you suggest some language here that would
if
strengthen
I
it?
could, Mr. Mayor, I would. I'm looking to you to fix this problem.
Okay, if you can bear with me, let me think about this and figure out if there's a way to do it, and I encourage others at the council table to help me.
And maybe the manager has an idea, right? He has the MBA, let's,
My question would be, even on the termination, is if the first clause, whether or not they equally line up, but does, you know, if, that's gonna be the one that they're gonna base it on, if this was to be legalized, I would think would be to what that first clause says, the 5-year with the, at the 1-year mark. I think that's gonna hold more weight than the termination clause at the end. That'd be my opinion on it, but.
I think so as well. I think the 1 year revisiting is sort of a binding both parties to come back to the table. It doesn't nullify subsection A and affect the term of the license, excuse me. But it does require us to come back to the table and work on this if there's something in it that's not working well. So it may require an amendment or a codicil of some sort.
I know I beat this horse to death, Mr. Mayor, but we've, in very close proximity to that, we were told, it ain't in writing, I don't have to do it.
Well, I think the value here is that I didn't have to do it there. The building continued ad infinitum. Here, the license
Yeah,
expires.
no, look, Henry, I'm supportive here.
Yeah, no, I know you are.
Just,
Here's where we are. I would take you to the last line of 5.1. Non-renewal is in the sole discretion of the non-renewing party. That seems to require both of us to agree to the renewal at 5 years. Top of the page, last line.
Right.
I mean, if we really had a problem, we said, we just can't do this 1 day longer, 1 minute longer, it seems to me we would be a non-renewing party on this and be able to say we're out.
fair enough, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, that is where we're at right now. It's off the table. We have the license agreement in front of us. Counselor Felch has indicated he'd like to have his own motion.
Like the motion to table?
Is
so
there
I
a
can look
second?
Through this?
There is a second, because I'd like a little more time to read this, and I've already told you, I'm in favor of this. I just would like a little more time.
It's non-debatable. All those in favor of the motion to table, please indicate by raising your hands. All opposed? That motion fails. We're on to another motion. Counselor Susie, would you like to make a motion?
It's a motion
To
To
accept
authorize
it.
the city manager to,
Authorize the city manager to enter an agreement.
All that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
is there a second on Counselor Susi's motion? Counselor Haynes, is there further discussion on this? So, all those in favor of the motion on the table, please indicate by raising your hands. All those opposed, that's 4-1, the motion passes. City manager, you're now authorized to sign this licensing agreement. The only thing I would suggest to you is the open, there are a couple of dates there, right? Which is.
Yeah,
one,
would have to
the
fill in
effective
those
date.
dates, and I'll have to work with the, you know,
So this
Farmers
still has,
Properties.
the next step for you, you're authorized to sign this. Obviously, you've got to interact with the
Right.
developer again.
Yep.
And if for some reason that's not going in the direction we've authorized you to, you'll come back to us before 2 weeks, but if we had to come back in 2 weeks, if there's.
correct,
nothing,
yep,
okay?
absolutely.
Thank you. That concludes the city council meeting for February 13th, 2023. I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 8:49 PM.